My name is Mark Dakiv. My PDJ number is 12505. I joined the PDJ in 97, I think, just before I came to New Zealand. I'm initially from Canada. I was born in St. Catharines, Ontario, which is near Niagara Falls. Most people will recognize that. How I got into Frisbee, my older brother was, he was throwing the Frisbees with the forehand, and that wasn't too common. There was no ultimate where I grew up and none of that back in the early 70s. So I always thought that was kind of cool that he could throw a forehand. So I remember we'd throw the Frisbees on the road, you know, when the cars come, you know, get off the road sort of thing. And I don't know how old I was. I went to the library. This is way before internet and everything. And I looked up Frisbee and I saw this one book called Frisbee by the Masters. And this talked all about freestyle and ultimate and disc golf and accuracy and DDC and all these different Frisbee sports. And I remember I was into that and I really liked the idea of Frisbee golf. And where I lived, you couldn't buy any Frisbees that were any good. They were just the cheap garbage ones. So I had to drive over to Buffalo, New York. I had to go over the river, go to the States, and there was a sporting store that sold world-class Frisbees, like the 97 gram, the 119 gram, the 133 gram. This is way back in the 70s. And so I would play Frisbee golf with those Frisbees around the neighborhood, you know, try to hit the stop sign or around the tree and that kind of thing. And then my Frisbees got all scratched up and worn out on the pavement. So I went to the nearest park and I started laying out Frisbee holes way back then, like, you know, through the soccer posts and land on the merry-go-round kind of thing. And so I just played with a few friends in the neighborhood, and I never played any organized sports or anything like that Frisbee-wise. I was a soccer player, but one of my soccer practices, at the end of one of the practices, I seen this guy with a whole stack of Frisbees and he was just throwing them as far as he could. And I've never seen anybody throw them that far. So I introduced myself. I was about 11 or 12 years old and he was going to university, Brock University. And he had all these 119 gram world-class Frisbees, blanks, and he was just throwing them as far as he could. And these are 40 molds. So anybody who knows what a 40 mold is knows what I'm talking about. These are pretty sought after discs back then. And so he had some Frisbee magazines, Discovering the World and all that kind of stuff. So I read those. And that's where I learned this power grip, where I'll show you, I guess, with the Frisbee, but how I put my finger over my thumb. And it's called the Bonapane grip by the guy who invented it. His name is Bonapane. So that's what kind of got me into Frisbee sports quite, I guess, seriously, just playing by myself and playing with friends and stuff. And it wasn't until university, I was going to University of Waterloo, and somehow I found out about a Frisbee tournament at the University of Toronto. So this would have been in 89, 88, 89, something like that. And there was a Frisbee golf tournament. So I thought, right on, I'm going to go to my first Frisbee golf tournament. And I remember I had a final exam that day for one of my courses, and I ended up just skipping it and pretending I was sick, and I wrote it later. So I went to this Frisbee tournament, and they had ultimate, they had guts, they had golf, they had a few other events. And I just went there for the Frisbee golf. And as part of my entry fee, I got an actual golf disc, which I've never seen before. I was using the 141 grams and the 133 gram and the world-class 165s and all that. So these guys had these small, heavy discs that I use now. And the first time I tried throwing it, it just went up and to the left, like just up and to the left. So I was trying to use it at the tournament because everybody else was using those. I don't remember how I did. I don't recall at all where I finished. And it was a lightning disc. It was I don't know. It floated in water. I can't remember what type of disc it was. I wish I kept it, but over the years it got lost somewhere. So that would have been in the late 80s. And then I moved out to Calgary, Alberta. and I got involved with the ultimate scene there. And we had a disc golf course, but it was just an object course, no baskets. And then after a couple years of playing ultimate, I got so injured that I just decided I'm not going to play ultimate anymore. I got into disc golf seriously, and then we put in a basket course in Calgary. And then we put in a basket course in Canmore, Alberta, which is along the Nordic track where they have the biathlon, the winter events for the cross-country skiing. So that was a nice tight track through the trees. And so let's see, I played through Alberta up until 97, till I came here to New Zealand. And all that time, from when I moved out there in 91 to 97, there weren't any PDJ events. There was just a bunch of guys, just grassroots getting together in Calgary and Edmonton and Banff and a few places. And we just hold tournaments and do things ourselves. And then I joined the PDJ in 97, came here, and I was living in Otaki for a while. Then I got a job in Wellington, so I was living down in Wellington, and I wanted to put in a disc golf course. And back then, it was grassroots here in New Zealand. There was a course in Auckland, One Tree Hill. There was Tamarunui had a course. Queenstown had a course, and Queenstown actually had some baskets. It wasn't fully basketed, but it had a few baskets. But everything else was trees. It was just ribbons around trees and just target golf. And I ended up putting a course in Harcourt Park, which is in Upper Hutt, which is just outside of Wellington. And they filmed quite a bit of Lord of the Rings in that park, actually, which was kind of cool. I remember we'd go to the park. We were playing there quite regularly before we had baskets in there. And at one point, there was a whole pile of trees off to the side. And we looked around and we thought, wow, they're doing a lot of pruning. I wonder what trees they're cutting down, and didn't notice anything different. A few days later, the pile was even bigger. So we didn't notice anything different. So we go over to that pile, and then we noticed that all these branches, these big branches, were cut and drilled and numbered. So what they did was, somewhere else, they cut down 3 huge trees, cut them all into chunks, brought them over to Harcourt Park, and then they just put them in this big pile. And then ultimately what they did is they assembled them all in the park, and they assembled them onto these big hydraulic platforms, maybe about this big in diameter. So they built the tree on top of that. And then there's a scene in The Lord of the Rings where Christopher Lee, he's the Saruman, I think, he says, or the orcs come up to him and they say, oh, master, the roots are deep, or whatever. And Christopher Lee goes, rip them all down. And then there's a scene where the tree just, you see all these orcs in the dark, they're pulling this tree down with chains so that they just hit the hydraulics and it just knocks the tree down, right? So they went through all that work for that short little scene in the tree, in the movie. And they put on all these fake leaves. So I remember I grabbed some of these fake leaves. I've got them as a little souvenir. So they went through all that work just for that spot. And then, so when I'm watching the movie, you can see that, oh, that's tee off 2, like the hobbits are having their second lunches or whatever on tee off 2, and then, Saruman's tower was right by basket 8, in Harcourt Park and all that. So that was kind of cool to see that movie and watch the scenes where our course is. So that takes me to here, and at the time I thought that was the first disc golf course in New Zealand that was fully basketed, complete, all baskets. So, because I lived down in Wellington, I didn't come up to Auckland much, and I heard about a course in Waiheke, but I wasn't sure. Someone said it was just kind of like a small little course and you use ultimate discs and that kind of thing. So I never played it. So I thought I put in the first course in the country, and then I found out later that Waiheke was put in about a year before mine, but that was all baskets. So I put in the second course in the country anyway. Let's see, the first contact I made for disc golf in New Zealand was Arthur Pengelly. And he was in Wellington. So I remember I took a train from Otaki up to Wellington. This is before I was working in Wellington. I was staying in Otaki, and I met him. We went to Harcourt Park, and he didn't really know the course. We just kind of looked around, and there was no map. There was nothing on the internet that showed the course, just a blurb saying that there was a course there. So we just kind of played where we thought the course was. And we had no idea. And then I ended up meeting Con McKinney, and he was living in Petone, and he was a freestyler, and he made discs. He made some discs, and he was part of that crew from way back with Nigel Barnwell. And Con McKinney made ultimate or freestyle kind of discs. And Peter Bowie, he was also down in South Island. They all knew each other, and so that was my initial introduction, was Arthur Pengelly, and he was from Taumarunui. So he brought me up to Taumarunui, and that's where I met the Lost Tribe, and that's where I met Blair and Dez and Albie and all those guys. And that was interesting because I just show up in Taumarunui with Arthur, and then there's these whole bunch of guys playing disc golf, and they're all throwing forehands because what was it? Was it Pete Boyle, who taught them all the forehand? I think through Bob Gentle when Bob introduced disc golf. So that was my first introduction of a crew of disc golfers, was the Taumarunui boys. And then let's see, that would have been 97, 98. And then I think the first time I met Simon Feasy was either 98 or 99, and it was one of the Crater Cup tournaments in Auckland, 98 or 99. And then let's see what happened. I think it was Bob Gentle's idea, to get a team of disc golfers to go to the World Championships in 2000, because the top 6 countries that finished would be invited to the 2001 World Games in Akita, Japan. So that was kind of Bob Gentle's brainchild. So that was Bob, Simon Feasy, Shane Vuletich, myself, Ruby Ward. I think that was us 5 that went in 2000. And then in 2001, we went to the World Championships in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And Simon is again, Ruby Ward again, Penny Jackson, I think, if I'm getting the name right, from Christchurch. Yeah, so that's how the New Zealand team going to the World started, was Bob's idea. And then, yeah, I think Simon ended up going to the 2001 World Games in Akita, Japan. That was a big thing. People were thinking maybe that would be the stepping stone to getting it into the Olympics at some point. Way back then they were thinking about that. Never happened, obviously. I can't recall my first tournament win. This was back in the 90s in Calgary, and back then, yeah, it was a bunch of guys, and you'd have 6 or 7 discs in your bag, and you'd have 6 or 7 beers in your bag as well. So can't remember which tournament I won the first one, but that's kind of the way it was back then. Like I said, I didn't join the PDGA till 97. Let's see, my most memorable win though was the 2002 Worlds in Houston, Texas. And okay, here's a sideline to that. I ended up staying at the TD of the Worlds, Dave Nesbitt. And in 2001, there was the tournament in Toronto Island. And Friday night, you just randomly flip discs and, become random partners. So Dave Nesbitt and I were partners, and I didn't know who Dave Nesbitt was. By the way, he's got the world's fastest catch in guts, fastest recorded catch in guts. That's one of his accolades. And so him and I were partners, doubles the Friday night, and we ended up winning, which was kind of interesting. So then in 2002, I was emailing the Worlds, the PDJ Worlds, about the upcoming Texas tournament, saying, hey, I'm coming from New Zealand, looking forward to going to the Worlds. I just thought you guys might want to know that this link doesn't work. And I showed them this link and it didn't work. And then the response I got back was, is this Mark from New Zealand, who was my doubles partner at Toronto last year? Where are you staying for Worlds and all that? I said, oh, hey, Dave, I got no idea. No, you just stay at my house. So I got invited to stay at the TD for Worlds at Dave Nesbitt's house. And I saw, back then, this is 2002, so this was still grassroots New Zealand. And then you're sitting down at the dinner table with the head of the PDGA and all these top PDGA guys talking about what's going on at the tournament and how they're going to fix these problems. So it was kind of cool to see all that stuff, at that time. So at that Worlds in 2002, I was playing doubles with a friend of mine from Alberta, and this was his first Worlds. And he and I ended up shooting a fantastic first round. And when we came in after the first round, we were in third place. No, we were in second place. There was Ken Climo and Barry Schultz were tied at 11 under. Myself and Denny Millette were tied at 11 under. And there was another team that was, I can't remember who they were quite recognized. They were tied at 11 under. And then there was one team, Mike Worm-Young and David Greenwell were at 12 under, and they ended up winning the World Doubles. So I think that was my most memorable event. Was after the first round of doubles, we were tied with Barry Schultz and Ken Climo, who were doubles partners. I thought, wow, it was crazy. That was a really crazy round. Everything went well, throwing perfect, hitting, there was only one hole we missed. And actually the people that we were playing, they mentioned that. They said, you guys had a perfect round except for that one hole. So that means, those guys, Dave Greenwell and Mike Young had a perfect round at 12 down. So that was a very memorable event. But yeah, it was nice. I was fortunate enough to go to quite a few Worlds during the 2000 to 2010. I went to about 6 or 7 in that 10-year span. And that was nice to, be able to go there every year, and then you see the same faces over and over again. And that's actually kind of why I thought about making this Disc Golf Words of Wisdom. So it was an idea I had way back then that I would create a web page and anybody could join and subscribe and submit Disc Golf Wisdom. And it doesn't cost anything. I don't sell anything, and I just do it just to share the wisdom. And then basically you just get an email a day of a wisdom from anybody who subscribed. And it could be a world champ, could be an absolute beginner who just started playing last week, right? And that's it. It's about anything about disc golf wise. So back then, I wish I had asked everybody, and I did more because I was right there talking to all these world champs and said, hey, can you give me some of your wisdom and subscribe? Because now, so many years later, when I try contacting these people, some of them don't remember who I am, or they must get so many requests I don't. So I wish I had acquired a larger archive of all these world champs back then. But anyway, I'm still acquiring it all the time. So it's discgolfwordsofwisdom.com. And it's just a free thing I do that you get an email a day, subscribe, and just enter some wisdom and share some wisdom. Yes, I'm living here at the beautiful Bella Rocca. Just behind yourself is the Hypocrite Hole. It's absolutely amazing to be living here, having one of the most difficult courses in the country right outside my backyard here. I love it. It's phenomenal. Before I came here, I was a computer programmer. So I was working for a lot of oil and gas companies. That's the kind of the industry there in Calgary, Alberta, for all the oil and gas companies. So I took a 6-month leave of absence and I came here. And then when I loved it so much in New Zealand, I thought maybe I could get some work here. So I started looking for work, and I ended up getting a contract with IBM in Petone, just outside of Wellington, as a computer programmer again. So I jumped at the chance, and then I ended up, renewing and staying longer. And so that turned into the whole 6 years, and I did my residency and citizenship way back then. And then when I went back to Canada in 2002, I did the same kind of thing. I went back in my computer work and programming, working for oil companies and all that kind of thing. And then, that lasted until I came back here in 2021. I don't work for any organizations anymore. I have my own agency. I have a digital marketing agency. So basically I help small businesses get exposure and, get more visitors, attracting more visitors and converting them into paying clients. And I help with review and reputation management and that kind of thing. So I kind of like doing my own thing now. It's a bit more flexible on the hours. You know, if it's sunny outside, I'd rather be outside doing stuff like I like to do versus, you know, sitting in front of a computer. So it's funny, my wife and I joke about, you know, public holidays, Saturdays or Sundays, they don't really mean anything to us anymore. Is it sunny? Okay, well, let's do something that we want to do outside. If it's raining, then we'll do, you know, work on the computer. So it's kind of nice that it gives us that opportunity. Okay, so here's in my bag. I've got an RPM bag, all RPM discs. We'll start with the drivers and work down to the putters. So I've got the Cotades. I've got 4 Cotades ranging from very stable to slightly less stable. These are the 2108s. These are the nice ones that are not as beefy. Then I've got 4 Kahoos. Oh, I don't know if you can see this one or not, but this is from 2019. So this is when I was bringing in RPM plastic into Calgary, Alberta. And this says, "To Alberta with love from RPM New Zealand." And so this was just a custom stamp I did that I'm a little bit proud of. So that's a Kahoo. Then I got 3 Kahoo XGs, which are the slightly domier Kahoos, which fly beautiful, have crazy glide. They're all slightly different instabilities as well. Then I've got an ancient Kiwi S, very desirable, very, very flat. This is the old mold. This is before they retooled the Kiwi, that's more like a Firebird now. Then a couple of Pekka Pekkas, the highly sought after minty green, nice and stable, beautiful mid-range, fairway driver. Another Pekka. And then I got a Huya. And this Huya is pretty grunty, pretty stable. This particular one says Gark 1205. So this is my PDJ number, and this is one of my nicknames, Gark. And that kind of looks like J Puke Puke, doesn't it? Then we got, let's see, we got a couple of Kias. We got a nice atomic, very stable Kia. And then we got one of these soft magma Kias. It feels beautiful, definitely not as stable, not as grunty as those Kias. Just feels really good, especially when it's a little wet and rainy. Then we've got a couple of Tuis. Love the Tuis. This one's a little bit on the stable side. And this one here, oh my goodness, this is an old Tui. Simon gave me this in 2011 at the Santa Cruz Worlds. I believe that was my best finish. I finished 7th at the Worlds in Santa Cruz for Masters. And this, Simon gave me this disc. This is an old Tui. It's a little different from the new Tuis because they used barium in the plastic way back then. And so it's a little bit thinner, slightly smaller because the barium adds the weight. So they had to retool it when they got rid of the barium. So this is a very old disc. And let's see, now we've got a couple of mid-ranges here. We got a couple of Kotukus. So here is a first run Glowy, very, very stable. And here is a nice Magma Kotuku. It flies beautifully once it gets beat in. This is just a gorgeous, gorgeous mid-range. A couple of Piwaka Wakas, the best name of any disc golf disc. So we got a couple of P-Walks here, which are beautiful, beautiful, extra long glide, slightly Annie mid-ranges. And then we got some putters. Oh, we got a couple of gummy, soft Magma Tuis, which I've been using for putters lately. I love these things. They just feel so nice. And then we got the Takapoo. Beautiful, beautiful putter. Very much like the AVR. I used to have an Atomic in here, but I just lost it at Bethel's last week, which I could use at Waitawa coming up this weekend. But beautiful, beautiful putter. A couple of backup discs in here. Because we're going to go to Waitawa. Some more Kotares, some stable Kahoos, and another Kotuku. And the most important disc of all, the Mini. Now this particular one is the 3-time PDGA Mini Disc Golf World Champion Signature Disc, Mark Dakiv. Look at that. Oh, sorry, I forgot about that. There we go. How's that? Forgot about your thing, sorry. Is that okay?